Hello, everybody. This is Harold George. I am the Extension Services Manager for the St. Johns County Public Library System. I thank you for joining us, and I am so grateful that today we're going to be talking to Robin Gren, who's the Outreach Coordinator for Wildflower Healthcare. Hi there, Robin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really glad that we're going to take a moment to talk about Diabetes Awareness Month for November. It just so happens that I have my follow-up appointment in November to have my blood sugar checked because my doctor has asked me to pay special care to that. So not that we planned it this way, but it is the perfect timing for that. And that's the earliest appointment I could get. And I've been working on improving that. I'm not pre-diabetic, but I was told that my blood sugar is probably higher than it should be, and we don't want to become pre-diabetic or even diabetic. So for someone like me who is wondering, or even for people who do have diabetes or relatives of diabetes, what is the message you'd like to put out there for the general public, and what do we need to be thinking about for Diabetes Awareness Month?
Okay, well, one of the things I would mention, just because you were talking about having the lab work done and kind of being on the edge, is just to give people a sense of what kind of numbers we're looking at. When we're looking at fasting blood sugars, if people don't have diabetes or even pre-diabetes, their blood sugar fasting would be below 100, meaning first thing in the morning before you had anything to eat or drink. It would be less than 100. When people start to fall in the range of 100 to 125, that's what we call pre-diabetes. And that simply means the body doesn't work quite the way it should, but it's not serious enough yet to call it diabetes, but they're kind of on their way. Once that first thing in the morning blood sugar is over 126, that's all the higher it has to be to call it diabetes. And a lot of people think, oh, it's not diabetes unless it hits 200. That's not true at all. And through the years, we've kind of brought the target blood sugars down because we've realized allowing the blood sugars to run even a little bit higher causes damage over time to circulation and to nerves. And that's probably the number one message when you ask the most important thing. Most people don't realize that diabetes is actually now considered a cardiovascular disease because what high blood sugars damage is circulation. So everything that involves circulation, whether it's your heart, or your brain, or the circulation to your feet and legs, all those things are slowly damaged over time when blood sugars run high.
Is it that the sugar causes an inflammation, or is there some other process that's taking place?
Well, the problem with diabetes, and the biggest part of the population that has diabetes have what we call type 2 diabetes. And those are usually folks that are mature adults over the age of, say, 35 or 40. And the body is not as sensitive to insulin as it used to be. Brain and muscle cells use blood sugar as fuel. And so, we need blood sugar, it's a good thing, but their insulin, the body's not as sensitive to the insulin, which kind of works like a key in a lock to open those brain and muscle cells so the blood sugar can provide the fuel that's needed. So for a lot of folks, over time, we might get a little fluffier, a little heavier around the middle. We might get a little less active. Those kinds of things can increase that insulin resistance problem. And so with time, it is very common to start to see those blood sugars rise. So two of the main issues with preventing diabetes are using a moderate diet and trying to stay, again, at a reasonable weight. And like I mentioned, we don't have to lose a huge amount of weight. If you're carrying a few extra pounds, even a 7% weight loss is enough to decrease the risk of diabetes. And if you weigh 200 pounds, that might be 12, 15 pounds. So we're not talking, runway model. We're just talking getting to a weight where the body can work a little more efficiently. And then adding regular activity. Muscles are the biggest part of the body that burn blood sugar. And the more you use the muscles, the more sensitive to insulin they become. So adding even a 30-minute, moderate walk can make the body more sensitive to insulin, which is what helps regulate our blood sugar for up to 24 hours after you do it. So even something as simple as a 30-minute walk, say 5 days a week, they found that in itself can dramatically decrease the risk of developing diabetes.
You remind me, I had an aunt when I was a child, and she didn't live too far away from us. And, you know, we'd be downtown, we'd be anywhere in town, and we would see her walking. And I remember asking my mom, why didn't she drive? Why did she walk so much? And it was because of her diabetes. And that, you know, she learned a long time ago that staying so active actually helped. And she also said that she enjoyed the walking, so that was a good one. I have actually taken part in the past few years twice in the Tour de Cure biking event to help raise money for diabetes. And there are so many ways that people can learn about diabetes and contribute to overall, you know, diabetes awareness. You kind of described to me, I, you know, recently turned 55. I'm definitely at a higher weight than normal. I have been getting a lot of exercise, but I need to find some other ways to do that. And I think what our challenge can be is just figuring out what works for us. But the important thing is to keep trying.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I always recommend to folks. Figure out what will work with your lifestyle, with your schedule, and with what you like to do. If you hate walking, walking is not a good choice for you. I've talked with young women who have small children, and they say, well, I can't go to the gym. I can't take a walk. I've got these kids. And then sometimes what I'll suggest is let them pick their favorite music, put on 30 minutes of their favorite music, and you and those kids dance in the middle of the living room floor. And the reality is it's fun, it's active, and the child is going to love it. They're not going to let you get away with not doing it because they love it now. So it just becomes something. Yeah, exactly. So you engage the family, you're teaching your kids those lifestyle habits of being active, and you're just having fun and bonding with your children.
So, you know, I think what's going to happen, I'm going to get these results. Hopefully they're positive. Hopefully the efforts I've been making have improved my blood sugar. And I tend to be pretty pragmatic, you know, like years and years ago when I was told I had arthritis, it wasn't so much bad news so much as like, good, now I know what I have to work with. Now I know what I need to do. And I'm hoping, again, I have good news, but if the doctor tells me, okay, you're in a place where you need to be concerned, are there any general steps that you might be able to recommend? Of course, you know, everybody's different, so they have to pay attention to their doctor. But are there any general steps you could recommend for any and everybody when it comes to good blood sugar health?
Well, and truly, the two things that I've mentioned, actually, there's tons of research related to diabetes because it is such a concern, especially here in the United States. And one of the things they found is for people who fall in that pre-diabetes range, who their blood sugars are a little higher than normal, but not high enough to officially call it diabetes yet, if they'll lose that 7% of current body weight, and if they will increase their activity by 30 minutes, 5 days a week, that in itself will decrease the chance of developing diabetes by 60%. That's huge.
One doesn't have to alter their life completely to actually make a difference.
No, they really don't. And it's like I've said to people, you know, if you have, let's say, 12 pounds to lose, if you lose 1 pound a month, that is very modest, very moderate weight loss in a year, I'm where I need to be. And then I've developed some better habits probably. And then it's just a matter of maintaining over time. So it doesn't have to be a crash diet. We really honestly would not encourage folks to try to lose, 30 pounds in 30 days because they're probably doing something that's so extreme they'll never be able to keep it off. So it makes right. So it makes much more sense to just, I usually, when I talk with patients, I'm actually a diabetes educator. I talk to patients about just picking 1 or 2 things, just 2 simple things that we're going to work on. And when those become comfortable habits, then we pick another couple of things and we start working on those. And in no time, honestly, you've kind of turned around your habits. And if you look back over time, you're like, wow, I can't believe that how much things have changed. And now this is just normal, it's comfortable.
Would you say that it's fair to say that we all know somebody with diabetes, whether or not we actually know about their diabetes?
You absolutely do, yes. It is, again, especially here in the United States, it's very, very prevalent. And certain ethnic groups, it is amazingly prevalent. Some folks just by genetics, some groups by genetics have higher risk. People who have African ancestry, people who have Native American ancestry, some of those groups just have a much higher genetic potential.
It's kind of like there's a lot of very thin people who have challenges with cholesterol.
Exactly, exactly. And so you can't look at somebody and know who has diabetes or who doesn't. Sometimes it's just a very strong family history. And if there is strong family history, for those folks, they may develop diabetes at a younger age than the rest of the population does. You know, for the general population, we typically would look at 35 or 40 and older. But in some genetic groups, it might be in their 20s, you know, even as teenagers, sometimes they'll develop that type 2 diabetes.
And it sounds to me, and this is my unprofessional, unscientific, uneducated observation just from people I've known over the years and growing up, that managing diabetes has gotten easier, if that's the right word, that people
Oh,
don't have
absolutely.
to necessarily, I mean, I've known one guy who used to compete in athletic events as
Mhm,
part of like the Firemen's Olympics,
mhm.
who was very diabetic, and yet he was able to manage it. So,
Yes, there have been Olympic athletes. There are many professional athletes too who have type 1 diabetes, but there have been Olympic athletes. There was a young man years ago, his name was Gary Hall. He was an Olympic swimmer. He went to the Olympics the first time, got some medals, but not as much as he wanted, and was ready to go back and win that gold. And in the interim, in the 4 years till the next Olympic, he developed type 1 diabetes. And the first doctor he went to said, "You're going to have to give up your swimming. You'll never be able to swim competitively again." And he
mm,
refused to accept that diagnosis, that answer. And he found another doctor, another endocrinologist. And that doctor worked with him. And he used some very special technology that we have available these days, an insulin pump and some special tools. And he was able to go back to the Olympics and win the gold that he wanted. So, um,
well, it's one more piece of evidence that no matter how in shape you might appear,
mhm,
exercise is always a good idea, even
mhm.
if you don't need to lose a single ounce, because it
Exactly, yes. Just
contributes
keeping
to
our bodies active helps with everything.
that's good to know. Well, is
Mhm.
there anything else about diabetes and Diabetes Awareness Month that I haven't touched upon that you'd like to tell us about?
I guess the last thing I would say is I became a diabetes educator many, many years ago. And when I first became an educator, most of the patients I saw had a lot of complications, a lot of damage, a lot of injury to their health. Now, because we have so many options through medication, through, you know, again, specialized equipment like insulin pumps and continuous glucose monitors, with good blood sugar control, people do not have to suffer the damage that we used to think of when we thought about diabetes. They don't have to have all those health problems if they'll just keep their blood sugars in good control. Again, research shows keeping the blood sugars in control can decrease the risk of damage from diabetes by 50 to 75%.
That is
So
really
it is phenomenal. So if we can keep the blood sugars looking near normal, it doesn't cause trouble, you know, and that's really, to me, that's the encouraging message is if I will, like you said, Harold, if you will embrace the fact that, well, there's something I need to work on, do take
absolutely.
the yep, take the steps you need to take, it can prevent you from having complications. Like I say, back in the day, I used to see fairly young adults with a lot of damage. Now I have patients that have had diabetes for 50 and 60 years, and they're still clipping along, doing all the things they do, you know.
Well,
So,
I've seen family members with diabetes who took it very seriously and did what they could, and
mhm,
then those who weren't necessarily as dedicated to it,
mhm,
and it made a big difference. It
mhm,
really did. And the best thing we always can remember is that we have doctors, we have information, we have the library, we have so many sources of useful information, but you really can be in the driver's seat of good health.
mhm. You
You're
definitely
not
can.
alone.
Absolutely. And working with your healthcare team because they're there to work with you. So asking questions, finding out, you know, if there's something you've heard about that you think might be helpful, talk with your doctor, find out what they think, if that might be something that could work for you.
Well, Robin, this has been helpful and encouraging.
Okay.
Um, I hope to get good news, but if it's not the news I want, I don't necessarily need to be defeated. And it's information like this that helps us embrace the experience that we have, and we can always do better, and we can always be as healthy as we possibly can be by just taking a few actions. So your information and the Wildflower Healthcare information is really, really a valuable asset to us. We really thank you.
I would just say if people enjoyed this message and they felt it was helpful, we would appreciate it if they would like, share, or comment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if anybody else needs to find out anything else about Wildflower Healthcare and where it's located and how people from the community can get some help, is that the information is right here, the name. How else can they get in touch with you?
They can look at our website online. They can also call the clinic if they'd like. And we are out and about in the community as well. I'm outreach, so that's what I do, is try to get the message out there. Yeah.
Well, Robin, I cannot say enough how much we appreciate what you're doing for the community, and that you took some time out of your busy schedule to help us get these messages out. Thank you so very much, and we look forward to hearing more about how we can take care of ourselves.
Right. Thank you for letting us be a part of your presence here.
You have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.